I'm truly allowing myself to be a vessel here. This isn't a topic that I know a whole lot about. In fact, I received guidance that the next vlog to do would be on grace. And so I prayed about it because it kept coming up over and over and over again, and I don't know, I just really had this desire to create this video. And so I prayed about it weeks and weeks and weeks ago, and I asked for guidance, and I just said, God, what's the deal with grace? What is it? Could you... And I was really scared when I said this prayer because I know the power of prayer, and especially when you're asking to learn something. Yeah. So I was a little nervous, but I just said, God, I want to know more about grace. What does it mean? What does it mean to be gracious? What does it mean to be graceful? What is this grace thing all about? Could you please show me? And I'm sorry, this is going to be a very emotional video because I'm dedicating this video to my mother, who recently passed away. My mother was diagnosed with cancer on St. Patrick's Day this year. And everything happened really fast. She was immediately hospitalized, and they found a tumor in her left hip, the lymph node of her left hip. It was T-cell lymphoma. It spread very, very fast, and they were very aggressive and started off with chemotherapy right away. But it was a lot on her and a lot on her body, and she had a blood clot in her leg and 2 blood clots in her lungs, and her heart was under a lot of stress, and they were trying to get her to a place where she would be strong enough to continue with chemotherapy. And so they took her off of that, but she was still in the hospital. She got to the point where she couldn't even get up to go to the bathroom without assistance. And she was in a lot of pain, and she was anemic and very swollen everywhere. And she had a stroke. And she didn't recover from that. I talked to her the night that she had the stroke, before she had the stroke. It was our last conversation. And somehow I just knew. I knew it would be the last time I talked to her. And she told me she loved me with her whole heart. And when she said that, something in me knew it was something that she wanted to tell me, as if it would be the last time she talked to me. And I said, Mom, I will see you soon. I'm coming to visit you. I'm going to see you soon. Hint, hint. Like, don't go anywhere. And she said, see you soon. And she told the nurse, you can hang it up now. She said, bye-bye. And as she hung up the phone, I heard her tell the nurse, that's my daughter Tiff. And the nurse said, oh. My brother and I got the call, and we had to rush out to Kansas, where she was at in the hospital. My 2 sisters, came from Texas. All 4 of us were there. She tied you to her kitchen chair. She broke your small, she cut your hair. We were with her when she died. She was at peace. So, what I learned about grace. My mother had this undying faith all the time. Just unbelievable. I am someone who I have to know. I have to have proof. It's just, like this weird thing. Half of me is this mystical, artsy, weird person, and then this other half of me is super, gotta know the details, gotta figure it out, have to have proof, have to have double proof, proof, just prove to me that it's real. And she just had this knowing, and the truth is, we all have this knowing. You just have to trust it. And she would tell me a lot of times, trust your knowing, and I'd be like, what the f*** are you talking about? And, I would be in, these glimpses of just knowing, and then I would not know, and my faith would be all shaky, and I'd call her up and be like, Mom, ah. And somehow she would just know, she just believed. She just had this hardcore belief in something bigger than herself, someone, some God was there taking care of her. And she said that, I'll be okay. God's taking care of me. And she trusted this process of life and of death. And she would talk about grief and how once you have this spiritual awareness, you grieve differently because you know that they're with you. And I know she's with me. I feel her. She's given me signs and everything else. But it's still hard. It's not totally easy. But this isn't about me. It's about the fact that I learned a valuable lesson of grace from the most gracious person I've ever met, my mother. And no matter what was going on in her life, no matter how angry she was at someone or something or some circumstance, she never seemed to be angry at the universe or at God, or, she just always just knew deep down that everything was working out in her highest good. She had this story about when I didn't really grow up with my mother. I grew up with my older sister. And she had this story about when she was younger, and my brother was very young, and she was very, very, very poor. And she was standing somewhere at a crossroads, literally a crossroads in the middle of the street. And she had my brother with her. So she's standing there. She's standing in the middle of this crossroads, literally in the middle of the street. My brother's standing next to her. She had enough money in her pocket, or purse or whatever, for a cup of coffee. And she had enough to buy a donut or something. I think it was a donut for my brother to eat. And she said in that moment, she knew. In that moment, she knew in her heart of hearts, she didn't have much money to her name. There was no one around with her, except for my little, he's my big brother, but at the time, my little big brother. She knew she would be okay, and she knew she was connected to something, and she would never, ever, ever be alone, and she was in what she always called the oneness. So there she was at this crossroads with my brother and having to take care of this child and herself without any money, whether it's right or it's wrong. That's the situation that she was in. And she was able to know that she was never alone and that she would always be provided for. And connected. And she said from that moment on, she would never not know that. You know, she knew that. She never doubted it. When I think about my mother, I think about grace and how she walks with grace. And no matter what the circumstance was, she just had this knowing and this gratitude to this higher power that she walked with, that she was a part of, and just knew maybe it wasn't going to work out, you know, how according to her will and her plans, but she knew and she trusted it was what was in her highest good and in the highest good of others. And she talked about God as if he was right there in the room always, you know. And, you know, this vlog is not supposed to be religious or anything like that, but when I think of grace, I get confused, you know, because there are a lot of different definitions on grace. In fact, I even looked up the definition of grace, and some say it's like a state of being, you know, you're in this grace, you're in this state of ease and this flow of divine energy. Or grace can be an attribute, something you're very generous. Or grace is God's mercy, you know, that saved a wretch like me. Which, when I think of my mother, I don't think about that, because she always felt like God, she would say, you know, basically anyone who had a punishing God, she would say, fire that God and hire a new one, which I always liked about her. But she went through so much, you know, and she didn't suffer long, and I do know that, I feel like my mother's jumping in my Spotify. Had this undying faith, like she was never like mad or angry, like, or doubting or anything like that. Like, she just knew. When she was in the hospital, we were scared, you know, there for a while, because she wasn't getting up to go to the bathroom, and we were wondering if it was like a lack of will on her part. And we were corrected. When we got there to the hospital, the nurse that had been working closely with her doctor told us about how the cancer had spread from, you know, her hip down through her kidneys, her leg, through her chest, and her entire left side, and that someone in her condition, it was miraculous that she was getting up or moving around at all. So it wasn't a lack of will on her part. She was trying. And everyone would talk about her attitude. You know, she was this interesting person and just had this great attitude about it. And she did, you know, she did. She, on the phone, everything, it was just all about healing, and it was shocking and it was surprising. And, you know, for me, as a spiritual, you know, junkie, I was thrown in this plan. What do you mean she has had a stroke and she's not coming back? What do you mean she's healing this herself? Right? But that wasn't the plan for her. That wasn't what was ultimately decided for her, or that she had decided for herself. Now, I have to just trust and know that she's in the place where she wants to be right now. And that's hard for me, you know. It's not what I planned. But this gracious woman just showed me how to walk with faith, no matter what your circumstances, how to be grateful for what you have. And she's beautiful. She's grace to me. And if she bestows anything, I hope that I have that characteristic or that state of being that she had. And I'm continuing to learn what it means to be graceful and continuing to learn what grace is all about. But I'm learning, and she taught me a lot, and I'm open and I'm willing to learn, and hopefully I can be that gracious and that graceful to help others and show them what it means. So I hope this has been inspirational for you, and thank you for allowing me space to be vulnerable and authentic and real. If you ever want to know what grace is, ask the Holy Spirit into your life and it will show you. And like I said, it's not religious, because me even saying that, like, there's this little part of me like, you said the Holy Spirit, but it's not religious, it's spiritual to me. Not that there's anything wrong with religion, but to me, there is this universal knowing, there is this higher power. We're all connected to this one essential source, and that energy, that state, that being is in all of us, within all of us, and it is this Holy Spirit. It is spirit, and it's warm and it's loving, whether we deserve it or not, whether we feel we do or we don't. It's all there for us, and it never leaves you. And you just have to ask and be willing and let it into your life. And when you do, in your darkest hours, you'll see what it means to be truly grateful. And that is what grace is. So, thank you.
Always in my heart.